Now on to another story that I actually went down for and covered in Wilmington, North Carolina. Wilmington, North Carolina gets its water from the Cape Fear River. Cape Fear River, I don't know why it's named the Cape Fear River. I was down there, I don't know, June or July, I forget, with Ty. So this was a case of Chemours. Chemours is a chemical company. It's basically a spinoff of DuPont, which is a toxic, industrial, chemical, polluting, lying sack of shit company that has poisoned and given cancer to, I can't count how many people in this country, and they had to pay nearly $1 billion in settlements last year. That's 1 billion with a B. Okay. Yeah, that's how you spell Speck, by the way. So, I was down there, and we covered that they found Gen X. Gen X is a dangerous chemical. It is this evil stepsister of C8. DuPont was manufacturing C8 for years until the EPA said you have to stop manufacturing C8. It was a chemical used in making non-stick Teflon, and it was causing cancers and things like that. So Chemours, which was spun off from DuPont, started making C8, which is slightly different. Started making Gen X, which is slightly different than C8, but kind of has the same compounds. Okay, so in August of this year, the North Carolina House joined the state Senate Thursday in passing legislation that gives money to local groups to work on water quality in the Cape Fear River and forces the State Department of Environmental Quality to explain why it hasn't issued a violation notice against the company that dumped the contaminant Gen X into the region's water supply. Okay, that sounds pretty good so far. The bill does the following: directs $250,000 to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington to quantify the amount of Gen X in the Cape Fear River and determine the impact it could have on public health and safety. That part I'm not so impressed by, because as a report I am working on right now that I've been working on for over 2 months, God willing, will be out soon, that might expose certain EPA-funded scientists and their testing as not so scientific and not so good. Relying on universities and agencies that get government grants to do testing, a lot of times results back in testing that doesn't report very high levels of contaminants or chemicals. Okay, so $250,000 went to them, provides $185,000 to the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority. Cape Fear Public Utility Authority was the local authority that once they found out about the Gen X dumping, again, the Gen X was being manufactured in the Chemours factory in Wilmington and dumped in the river. The EPA said you cannot dump these chemicals in the river. They did it anyway. Did it anyway for years. Okay. $185,000 going to the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority and other local public utilities to develop treatment technologies to remove Gen X from public water supplies and to make sure that treatment is working through ongoing monitoring. Begins the development of an electronic filing system to speed up the water quality permitting processing, blah, 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 blah. So they were creating $185,000 to the local public water utility to develop treatment technologies. Well, what does that do for people that have been drinking the water for years and don't know what the hell health ailments they currently have or might have in the future? Because it's not completely known what these chemicals do to you. But in testing on lab rats, it is found that Gen X has caused certain types of cancers. It has caused birth defects and premature birth for women with children. It has, whether it be liver cancers, they had anal cancer on a few rats, like really disgusting, awful, terrible stuff. So, okay, so that was in August. Then you have State Science Board convenes to examine Gen X and other emerging contaminants that were found in the Cape Fear River. This is from 2 days ago. A revamped and expanded State Secretary Science Advisory Board met for the first time Monday to begin examining Gen X and other emerging contaminants and their potential effects on human health and the environment. Okay? The 16-member board, comprised largely of professors from state universities, has the potential to sustain a healthy environment for us all, said Jamie Bartram, board chairman and founding director of the Water Institute at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The board, which has doubled in size, will begin looking at emerging contaminants. That sounds very interesting, emerging contaminants. as a result of an announcement in June that Gen X, a chemical used in the production of Teflon and other products, had been found in the Cape Fear River below the Chemours chemical plant near the Bladin-Cumberland County line. The plant, formerly owned by DuPont, produced Gen X and its chemical cousin C8. Both chemicals have been found in private wells surrounding the plant and in Wilmington's drinking water supply. The compounds have been linked in studies to testicular, pancreatic, and liver cancer in animals, but it is not known whether those effects are the same in humans. I got news for you. If they're finding it in animals, there are studies that say finding it in animals is a good precursor to finding it in humans. But nobody, the media doesn't need to report on that, do they? Earlier this month, Mike Waters, who lives about a mile from the plant, said in an independent lab test he ordered found about 15 different contaminants in his well water, not just Gen X. Gen X has become such a concern that Cumberland County Schools last week shut down water fountains at Alderman Road and Grays Creek Elementary Schools so the states could test the water for the chemical. So, other contaminants, up to 15 other contaminants found. Mandy Cohen, the Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, told the board that it should evaluate the emergent contaminants. Emergent contaminants is a very dressed up way of saying other toxic chemical shit that's been dumped in your water because we allow corporations to do whatever the hell they want because corporations keep us in office. That's what that means. Emerging contaminants, as though their own families were drinking the water where they've been found. It's unbelievable. We're early in the game, so oftentimes it's hard to predict where an advisory board will go, said one of them. Okay, so moving on, a Gen X lawsuit was filed. A Gen X lawsuit was filed because, this was 2 days ago, because a complaint alleges a 5-year-old water heater showed levels of the toxic compound higher than the state's health goal. I'll read you from this. A Compass Point water heater is central in the latest Gen X lawsuit. After her initial shock at revelations about Gen X in her water wore off, Victoria Carey, 58, decided to have her 5-year-old appliance drained and samples taken of the sludge in the bottom. Those samples, taken June 23rd and tested by a private lab, showed levels of 857 parts per trillion in the liquid portion of the sludge and 623 parts in the solid. Both levels are higher than the 140 parts per trillion health goal set by North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. So you have 140 parts per trillion is their goal, 857 in the liquid, 623 in the solid. So it's sitting there and it's piling up, and as that water is coming through to the faucet, you're drinking it or whatever that chemical is that's coming through a faucet and into your body, said Carey, who lives in Leyland. Carey's class action lawsuit, filed Monday in U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of North Carolina, is at least the third of its kind filed against Chemours and DuPont, but the first one that points to evidence that hadn't yet been in the public sphere. Like the others, the suit says the chemical companies acted negligently and hurt property values. But Carey's suit also calls for Chemours to remediate any properties contaminated by Gen X and the associated chemicals, consider paying for alternative water sources on a regional scale, and fund diagnostic testing for the early detection of illnesses. Ted Leopold, the lead attorney on the case, said, "This is clearly a very, very important issue to North Carolina and to these areas in particular. And it's important through these litigations to address corporate misconduct, and corporations have to take responsibility." So, corporations taking responsibility, right? So obviously, the state of North Carolina is going to pull the permit for Chemours so they can't manufacture anything anymore. Wouldn't that kind of make sense? You don't think that they're going to allow this company to keep manufacturing toxic chemicals until a full report has been done and until full scientific testing has been done, until full cleanup of the river, and then testing after to show there is no contaminants harmful to human beings in the water. They're obviously going to pull the permit, right? What do you think? You think they're going to pull the permit? Ay. Headline: after Chemours stops Gen X release, DEQ will not pull their permit. State environmental regulators said Tuesday they have decided not to pull a permit for Chemours, the company found to be releasing Gen X into the Cape Fear River, at least for now. Officials at the Department of Environmental Quality warned Chemours in early September that they could suspend the chemical firm's wastewater permit within 2 months if it didn't stop discharging a collection of fluorinated compounds into the river, which serves as the primary source of drinking water for Brunswick, Bladen, New Hanover, and Pender counties. The compounds, which include Gen X, are unregulated, largely unstudied, and have unclear impacts on human health. After a partial consent order from a Bladen County court, the company said it would capture wastewater generated from industrial processes that generate the chemicals as byproducts, effectively ending their release into the river. DEQ Division of Water Resources Deputy Director Linda Culpepper said in a letter the company dated Tuesday that although the agency concluded that it's not necessary to suspend Chemours' permit, regulators will continue to monitor the measures required under the order. Like, am I living in an alternate universe? So now they're not going to stop the company from releasing byproducts, waste byproducts into the water because they're now regulating it. Well, why weren't you regulating it in the first place? Huh? Why weren't this company and other corporations being regulated in North Carolina, in Indiana, in Michigan, in Chicago, in Texas, in all the places of water contamination? Why is it now, oh, well, we're not going to release the permit, and if I look into it, I guarantee you it's because DuPont has given money to most of these politicians. Let's not worry about the children. We'll kill the children. We'll kill their parents. Cancer, birth defects, no matter. We'll pay a settlement like we always do, and then go back to dumping toxic shit in their water. No crime, no foul. But no, we can't pull the permits of industrial chemical polluters that break EPA regulations. They weren't supposed to be dumping C8 or Gen X into the water. We can't arrest bankers in this country. No. We can't arrest Native Americans singing and dancing peacefully. We can't arrest African Americans protesting peacefully and kill them. But can't pull a permit for a corporation. Certainly can't jail bankers, pharmaceutical industry executives. None of that. No. You do what you want with your kid. We're saying the water's safe, even though most of the testing is done by people that we, the state agencies and the federal government, give thousands and thousands of dollars, in some cases millions of dollars, in grant money. So if you're living in North Carolina, your state is basically telling you, the Department of Environmental Quality, corporations before human life. We're not going to pull this company's permit. And by the way, DuPont, or Chemours, which is a spinoff of DuPont, they got more money than man. They got more money than all of us combined, and times 10. So whatever money and fines and legal bills and settlements is a drop in the bucket for them. It's a drop in the bucket for them. You're coming with me because I got to open the door. It's a drop in the bucket for them compared to all the money that they're making from dumping this shit and not meeting actual regulations. So, yes, Joy, I'm going to post the links to all these articles so you could read it. So, the bottom line is this. I don't care if you're in Flint. I don't care if you're in East Chicago. I don't care if you're in North Carolina. I don't care if you're in Massachusetts. I don't care where you are. You got to look into the water in your neighborhood, where you are getting it. What source does it come from? What industrial companies are nearby, and what kind of shit they're dumping nearby? What landfills are nearby? You also need to look into your politicians, from your city councilmen, from your mayors, to your state reps, to your governor. How much money are they taking from these companies? That will help give you an answer on why they're not pulling the permits. This company, Chemours, has literally been dumping cancer-causing chemicals in the river that serves water to 500,000 people for years. and they're not going to pull the permit. Oh, we're regulating it now. Well, why the hell weren't you regulating it in the first place? It is the Environmental Protection Agency. The only problem is they're protecting the environments for executives and their freaking estates and their yachts. Those environments, not our environment. We will turn this video from a Facebook video into a YouTube video. We will put the images, the videos, I'll put the links. If you're living in North Carolina, I would call your state agencies. I'd call your local representatives and ask them, why isn't Chemours, that's Chemours, why is their permit not being pulled immediately? Why do we not have widespread testing of homes, people's houses, blood tests of residents? That shit ain't happening. I spoke with one resident on the phone today. We're just going to have to wait a few years. No, you shouldn't have to wait a few years. You guys have been drinking cancer-causing water, chemicals in your water for years. And one thing is true, we do not know the full effects of this. It could be, hopefully, not as bad as we think, or it could be worse than we think.